used to look at me like I was the only light in the room, like the world could fall apart, but we would still bloom. Your eyes would hold me close, even when your hands were far. Now they pass right through me, like I'm just another scar. I didn't hear you say goodbye, you didn't even try, but something in your silence made my heart ask why. It was the way you stopped looking at me, like I was your forever, like I was all you'd ever need. Your eyes don't stay the same anymore, they were like you're already walking out the door. You didn't have to say a word, I felt it in the space between. The way you stopped looking at me broke everything in me. You sit across the table, but you feel miles away. Your smile doesn't reach your eyes like it used to every day. I search your face for warmth, but I only find goodbye. You won't admit you're leaving, but your eyes don't lie. You say that nothing's changed, but I can feel the shift. The love that once felt endless now feels paper thin and ripped. It was the way you stopped looking at me, like I was your forever, like I was all you'd ever need. Your eyes don't stay the same anymore, they were like you're already walking out the door. You didn't have to say a word, I felt it in the space between. The way you stopped looking at me broke everything in me. I would have fought for us, I would have stayed and tried, but how do you hold on to someone who's already gone inside? I saw it in a second that lasted way too long. The moment your eyes let me go was the moment I knew I was wrong. It was the way you stopped looking at me, like I was home, like I was safe. Now I'm just a memory. You didn't slam the door, you didn't make a scene, but the way you stopped looking at me was the loudest goodbye I've ever seen, I've ever seen, I've ever seen. You said my name the same way, but something felt off, like there was distance in your voice hidden behind a cough. You reached for my hand, but you didn't hold it tight. Your fingers felt unsure, like they were ready to say goodnight. Then you said I love you, like you always do, but there was half a second before it came from you. And that half-second pause cut deeper than a knife, because love shouldn't hesitate when it's the love of your life. It was that half-second hesitation before you said the words like your heart needed permission, like loving me suddenly hurt. I heard the doubt inside your voice, even though you tried to hide it. The tiny breath between the syllables was where you quietly denied it. You didn't have to walk away. I felt the separation in that half-second hesitation. You kissed me on the forehead like I was something fragile, like you were already letting go, but doing it in style. You told me I was overthinking, that nothing had changed, but your warmth felt borrowed and your touch felt rearranged. You say it's all in my head, that I'm imagining the fear, but love doesn't stutter when it's real and clear. It was that half-second hesitation before you said the words, like your heart needed saving from the promise it once preferred. I heard the space between I and love, like a crack in the foundation. That tiny breath you tried to hide was our quiet devastation. You didn't have to say goodbye. I felt the resignation in that half-second hesitation. If I mattered like before, you wouldn't need to think. Love shouldn't pause on the edge of the brink. I would have held you tighter, I would have stayed and fought, but your silence between two words said more than you thought. It was that half-second hesitation that told me we were done before you even finished saying I was still your one. Now every time I hear those words, there's an echo of separation, because love ended quietly in a half-second hesitation. We were walking side by side, like we always used to do, our shadows touching on the ground, like they still believed in you. I reached for you without thinking, like my hand had always known, but your fingers didn't answer the way they once had shown. It was such a simple moment, so small, so easy to miss. But love doesn't feel the same when it hesitates like this. Your hand pulled away first, before I even understood, before my heart could brace itself, before I knew it should. You didn't look back at me, you didn't even explain, but I felt the distance growing in that quiet little space. You didn't say we're breaking, you didn't make it worse, but something in me shattered when your hand pulled away first. like you needed somewhere to hide, like touching me felt heavier than keeping me by your side. I tried to brush against you like it was all the same, but your skin felt unfamiliar, like it forgot my name. You said it was nothing, just tired, just cold, but love doesn't withdraw when it's steady and whole. Your hand pulled away first, like it didn't belong in mine, like loving me was something you were slowly leaving behind. I stood there still, pretending that I didn't feel the shift, but your silence was a goodbye wrapped in a subtle drift. You didn't have to speak, you didn't have to rehearse. The ending started quietly when your hand pulled away first. Just held on, but you loosened your fingers like you were already gone. How do you beg for someone to touch you like before, when their hands have already let go of what they swore? Your hand pulled away first, and my heart followed after. I knew it in that second, love was losing its anchor. You didn't slam the door, you didn't make it burst, but the quietest goodbye of all was your hand pulling away first. We used to fill the room with laughter that wouldn't end. Now the air feels heavy, like it's learning how to pretend. You sit across from me, scrolling through your phone, and I've never felt so crowded while feeling so alone. There's no fight, no screaming, no tears on the floor, just a silence growing louder than ever before. It's the quiet between us that's tearing me apart, not the words you never say, but the distance in your heart. We talk about the weather, we talk about the day, but nothing about the feeling that's slowly slipping away. It's the quiet between us, colder than it seems, because love doesn't die loudly, it fades inside the in-between. Your eyes avoid my questions like they're scared of what they'll find, and every small I'm fine feels carefully designed. You used to hold my face like I was something rare. Now your hands stay folded like you don't belong there. I keep waiting for something to break, but you're choosing silence over the truth we won't say. It's the quiet between us that's breaking me tonight. Not a single shattered plate, just the absence of your light. You don't slam the door, you don't make a scene, but I can feel forever dying in the in-between. It's the quiet between us, soft but so obscene, because love doesn't end in chaos, it ends in what's unseen. I would rather you scream, tell me you're done, than sit here pretending we're still one. How do I fight when you won't even speak? How do I fix what you won't even keep? It's the quiet between us that said goodbye first. Not your lips, not your touch, but the silence that hurts. And I'm still sitting beside you while you're already gone, because love didn't leave loudly, it just slowly withdrew. In the quiet between us, you were lying next to me, but you felt so far away, your body facing the wall, like you didn't want to stay. The room was dark and quiet, but my heart was wide awake. Listen to the rhythm of every breath you take. It used to sound like comfort, like safety in the night, but something in your breathing didn't feel right. I heard goodbye in your breathing before you said a word. In the space between your inhale was the saddest thing I heard. It wasn't loud or angry, didn't need to shout, but every shallow exhale felt like you were checking out. You didn't have to tell me, I felt the leaving too. I heard goodbye in your breathing before I heard it from you. You didn't pull me closer, you didn't say my name. Your chest rose and fell, but nothing felt the same. I counted every second like I could stop the end, but your silence in the darkness was louder than pretend. You said you were just tired, that I was overthinking again, but love doesn't breathe differently when it plans to remain. I heard goodbye in your breathing, like a secret you couldn't hide. In the quiet of the nighttime, I felt you step outside. Your heartbeat used to match mine, like we were intertwined. Now there's distance in your like you've already made up your mind. You didn't have to say it. I knew what we were losing. I heard goodbye in your breathing before you chose it. How do you beg for someone who's already letting go? How do you hold on to love that doesn't want to grow? I lay there next to you, but I've never felt so alone. Because the sound of your breathing didn't feel like home. I heard goodbye in your breathing, soft but crystal clear. In the way you turned away, like I wasn't even here. You didn't slam a door, you didn't make it cruel. But the night I heard your breathing change was the night I lost you. You said you were fine, said nothing was wrong, but your eyes kept drifting like they didn't belong. You smiled like always, you held me the same, but something in your gaze wouldn't say my name. I've known you long enough to read what you won't say, and your eyes were whispering, you were slipping away. Your eyes apologized before your lips could lie. They held a quiet sorrow, like they didn't know why. You tried to look steady, you tried to look sure, but your eyes were breaking behind that composed allure. You didn't say you hurt me, you didn't even try, but I saw the ending in your apologizing eyes. You touched my face gently, like I was already gone, like you were memorizing what you wouldn't hold for long. You said I was imagining that love was still the same, but your eyes kept trembling like they carried shame. You think I don't notice the guilt you try to hide, but your silence is loudest when your eyes want to meet mine. Your eyes apologize for love you couldn't keep, for promises you once made, but now we're buried deep. You didn't confess betrayal, you didn't say didn't make me cry, but I lost you completely in your apologizing eyes. Your apologizing eyes. You still say my name, but not the way you used to. It doesn't wrap around me like something safe and true. You still hold my waist, but your hands don't stay. They rest there like a memory that's already fading away. Nothing dramatic, nothing extreme, just love turning quiet like a half-forgotten dream. You love me softer than you did before, like your heart was slowly closing the door. Your kisses felt lighter, your touch less sure, like loving me fully was too much to endure. You didn't stop loving me, you just loved me worse. And I felt myself breaking with every softer verse. You still fall asleep beside me, but you don't pull me near. There's space between our shadows where you used to disappear. You still say forever, but it sounds rehearsed, like a line you're reading that quietly reversed. I keep asking myself, when did it change? When did your words start feeling strange? You love me softer, like you were easing out, like your heart was whispering while your lips wouldn't shout. You didn't pull away suddenly, you didn't make it harsh, but every gentle distance left another scar. You didn't leave me loudly, you didn't make it worse. You just loved me softer until it hurt. I would have taken the pain if it meant you'd stay, but watching you fade broke me in a different way. I don't need grand gestures or fireworks above, I just needed you to love me like you love. You love me softer until I felt alone. Even lying beside you, I felt unknown. You didn't break your promise, you didn't make a scene, you just slowly disappeared in the spaces in between. And I think that hurt more than if you just just let go because you didn't stop loving me. You just loved me softer. You just loved me softer. You start to say something, then suddenly you stop. Your words hang between us like they're scared to drop. I think we should. Then you look away, like finishing that sentence would give too much away. I wait for the ending, but you let it fade. And somehow the silence says more than you say. Your unfinished sentences are breaking my heart, because I know how they end even before they start. You don't have to finish. I can hear the truth in the way your voice trembles when it's trying to soothe. You don't say it's over, but it's written in the air, in every quiet moment where words aren't there. Your unfinished sentences are tearing us apart. You say maybe we need, then swallow the rest, like honesty, something you can't get off your chest. You say it's not about, but pieces you're hiding are ready to go. You think I don't notice the cracks in your tone, but silence gets louder when love feels alone. Your unfinished sentences are louder than screams. They echo inside me and unravel my dreams. You don't say goodbye, you don't close the door, but every cut off word hurts more and more. You don't have to finish. I feel what you meant every time your courage came and then went. Your unfinished sentences say everything you want. If you're gonna leave me, just say it out loud. Don't let me keep guessing, don't let me drown. I'm tired of translating the fear in your eyes, of completing the endings you keep trying to hide. Your unfinished sentences are the cruelest goodbye, because hope keeps surviving every time you don't try. You don't say you're leaving, but you're already gone, and I'm left finishing words all alone. You're unfinished Because love didn't end, it just stopped. It just stopped. I wake up in the dark, reaching for your skin, but the sheets are untouched where you should have been. The pillow still holds the shape of your head, but the warmth we once had has quietly fled. You're lying right beside me, but I feel the space. There's a winner in this room I can't erase. It's cold on your side of the bed, even when you're here. Your body's inches from mine, but your heart's nowhere near. The distance isn't miles, it's barely a breath, but I feel forever in the silence you left. You didn't pack your things, you didn't say you're done, but it's cold on your side of the bed, like I've already lost someone. You turn your back slowly, like it's easier that way, like facing the ceiling means nothing to say. Your shoulders don't move when I quietly cry, and I wonder if you hear me or just let it pass by. You say you're just tired, that tomorrow will be fine, but love doesn't freeze over without a sign. It's cold on your side of the bed, colder than the night, not from open windows, but from fading light. Your hands don't search for mine like they used to before. Now there's a frozen silence between us on the floor. You didn't slam the door, you didn't break a thread, but I felt us die slowly in this bed. I would have held you closer if you just turn around, but you chose the quiet over the sound. How can two people lie this close together and still feel this far? It's cold on your side of the bed, and I can't make it warm. No matter how tight I hold you, or how much I mourn, you didn't say goodbye, you didn't have to instead, because love turned to winter on your side of the bed. I saw you laughing from across the room. Your eyes were shining like they used to. But it wasn't because of me, it wasn't my name that made your face light up that way. You used to look at me like I was your joy. Now I'm just standing here watching you enjoy. You're smiling without me like I was never your reason, like happiness found you in a different season. Your eyes don't search for mine the way they did before, and that hurts more than slamming a door. You didn't say you're leaving, you didn't make it loud, but watching you smile without me breaks me somehow. You talk so freely, your voice so alive, but when you turn to me, it barely survives. I try to say something to make you stay, but your laughter already drifted away. It's not jealousy, it's not pride, it's the feeling of being left outside. You're smiling without me like I don't belong, like loving me was something wrong. You glow in conversations that don't include my name, and I'm realizing slowly we're not the same. You didn't have to hurt me, you didn't have to lie, but watching you happy without me feels like goodbye. I would have given you joy, I would have tried harder, but you look lighter now, like I made you darker. And maybe that's the truth, I don't wanna see that you're finally smiling, free of me. You're smiling without me, and that says it all, because a love doesn't fade if it's afraid to fall. You didn't break my heart, you didn't push me aside, but I saw the ending clearly in the way you smiled without me. Without me. I kept trying to fix what I didn't understand, why your touch felt distant, why you loosened your hand. You said we were okay, that nothing was wrong, but Did your heart stop arriving a long time ago? I blame myself for months for the space in your tone, but I was fighting for someone who was already gone. You were already gone before you said goodbye. Before the final silence, before I even cried, you left in little pieces, in glances and sighs, and nights you turned away, in unfinished replies. You didn't leave all at once, you left slow and withdrawn, and I was still holding on to someone already gone. You stopped asking questions, stopped learning my pain. You stopped noticing tears falling like rain. You stopped saying forever with fire in your chest. It became just another word, like all the rest. I thought if I loved you harder, you would return, but you can't reignite what no longer burns. You were already gone when I still believed, when I was planning futures. You had already left me. Your body stayed beside me, but your heart moved on, and I was loving someone who was already gone. If you had told me sooner, maybe I could breathe instead of slowly drowning in what I couldn't see. I wish you had been honest instead of kind, because false hope hurts more than goodbye. You were already gone, and I just didn't know. I kept begging you to stay while you were letting go. You didn't slam the door, you didn't make it wrong, but I lost you long before you said I was gone. The room was dim, only streetlight through the blinds. Your shadow on the ceiling, but your hand not finding mine. We've always slept like this, your fingers laced in tight, but something changed that night. I kept pretending I was asleep, waiting for you to move, for the familiar pull that would make me feel loved. But the night you didn't reach for me was the night I felt it, and not in a fight, not in a scream, but in the absence of your hand. You stayed on your side like there was a line between your heart and mine. You didn't say goodbye, you didn't make a plea, but love grew quiet. closer slowly, hoping you would turn, but you breathed and stayed steady, like you didn't even feel me burn. I counted every second like it was a test, waiting for your arm to cross my chest. But the space between our bodies felt wider than before, and I realized I was lying next to someone unsure. The night you didn't reach for me, I knew something broke, because silence can be louder than the cruelest word you spoke. You didn't push me away, you didn't have to. Instead, you just left me untouched in our bed, and that was enough to make me see you were already gone from me. I would have held you tighter if you just let me in, but how do you fight for warmth when you can't feel skin? How do you beg for closeness without sounding afraid? How do you hold on to someone who's slowly starting to fade? The night you didn't reach for me was colder than goodbye, because hope was still alive. When you let it die, you didn't end us loudly, you didn't set me free, but love stopped breathing. The night you didn't reach for me. I asked you if we're okay. You looked down at your hands. You said, why wouldn't we be? But you didn't understand. I searched your face for comfort, for something steady and true, but the quiet in your eyes told me more than you. You didn't argue, you didn't defend, you just let the question hang in the end. Your silence was the answer, even though you never spoke. In the pause between my heartbeats, I felt something broke. You didn't say you stopped loving me, you didn't say it's done, but the emptiness between your words said you were already gone. You didn't have to hurt me, you didn't have to lie. Your silence was the answer to every time I asked you why. I asked if you still saw a future with my name. You took too long to answer, and nothing felt the same. You said, of course I do, but your voice was thin, like the truth was standing just outside your skin. Love doesn't hesitate when it wants to stay, but you let the quiet do the talking that day. Your silence was the answer, louder than goodbye. It echoed in the distance of the look inside your eyes. heart forever crumble in the space between. You didn't break my heart with something cruel or harsh. You just let your silence tear us apart. I would have taken honesty even if it hurt, but silence leaves you bleeding without a single word. How do I fight for someone who won't even speak? How do I hold on to love that feels so weak? Your silence was the answer, I just didn't want it to be. I kept hoping for reassurance while it was setting you free. You didn't say goodbye, you didn't even try, but I finally understood. Your silence was my reply. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't make a scene. I just sat there shaking in what used to be our dream. You look so calm, like this was easy to do, while my whole world was falling because of you. I didn't want to scare you, didn't want to push too far, so I swallowed all my panic and hid my breaking heart. I begged in a whisper, please don't leave me now. My voice barely breathing, but you still heard how. I wasn't asking loudly, I wasn't full of pride, I was just trying to save us while you let it slide. You didn't yell, you didn't fight, you just watched me shatter quietly that night. I begged in a whisper, and you still walked away. I said we could fix it, we could start again. We don't have to end like this, like strangers, like friends. My hands were trembling, but I kept them steady for you, trying to look strong while breaking in two. You said it's not your fault, but that made it worse, because it meant your heart had already reversed. I begged in a whisper, like love was fragile glass, like if I spoke too loudly, you let the moment pass. I wasn't proud, I wasn't brave, I was just afraid of watching you not stay. You didn't slam the door, you didn't need to instead, because your silence was enough to shred the whisper I gave. I would have lowered myself just to keep you near. I stay with trembling pleas. You can't hold on to love that wants to leave. I begged in a whisper, but you didn't bend. You let my quiet desperation reach its end. I didn't scream your name, I didn't curse the sky. I just asked you softly not to say goodbye. And somehow that hurts more, because even my whisper wasn't enough for you to stay. I was ready for a storm, ready for the tears, ready for the shouting and facing all our fears. I thought love would struggle, I thought it would resist, but you just stood there quiet, like none of this existed. I waited for you to argue, to say I was worth the pain, but you just let me crumble, like we were nothing to save. It was love that didn't fight back, that hurt the most of all. Not broken glass or angry words, but watching the silence fall. You didn't try to hold me, you didn't try to stay. You let me walk away in tears and never asked me to stay. Love should have battled, love should have tried, but ours just stood there motionless and let itself die. I said maybe we need space, maybe we need time, hoping you would stop me, say no, you're still mine. But you nodded slowly, like you felt relief, like letting go of us was easier than grief. I would have fought forever through the doubt and fear, but I was the only one still standing here. It was love that didn't fight back, that left me on my knees. I was begging for its distance while you let it leave. No desperate confession, no trembling plea, just quiet acceptance of losing me. Love should have trembled, love should have cried, but ours just watched me breaking without even trying. Maybe that's the truth I didn't want to face. You weren't scared of losing me, you were ready to erase, and I kept waiting for a sign that you still cared inside. But love that doesn't fight for you has already decided. It was love that didn't fight back, that finally made me see if I have to understood. We've got no one else to be ready for the start. I waited I was ready for the storm. I was ready for the storm. You didn't raise your voice, you didn't slam the door. You just stood there calmly, like we were something small. No shaking hands, no tears in your eyes, just a quiet stillness where love slowly dies. I kept waiting for thunder, for something to break, but the sky stayed silent while my heart ached. Your goodbye had no sound, no echo, no crash. It didn't tear through the walls, it didn't shatter like glass. It was soft and steady, like you'd practiced the line, like losing me gently would make it fine. You didn't scream my name, you didn't fall to the ground, but somehow it hurt more, 'cause your goodbye had no sound. You said you deserve better, like that was enough, like handing me freedom was calling your bluff. You didn't look back, you didn't hesitate, just walked away slowly and sealed our fate. I would have preferred chaos, something loud and clear, instead of this quiet ending that still lingers here. Your goodbye had no sound, but it echoes in me, in the way you let go so easily. No broken promises, no angry plea, just quiet acceptance of losing me. You didn't make it messy, you didn't make it cruel, but silent goodbyes are the hardest to move. How do you grieve something that didn't break? How do you scream when there's no noise to make? You left like a whisper in the middle of the night, and I'm still replaying that silent goodbye. Your goodbye had no sound, but it shattered my world. Not in pieces, but in silence. You didn't slam the door, you didn't turn around, but the quietest ending was the loudest I've found. Because love didn't explode, it didn't fall down, it just disappeared without a sound. Didn't try to hide it, the tears fell anyway. Right there in front of you, with nothing left to say. My hands were shaking, my voice barely there, but you just kept staring, and nothing in the air. I thought if you saw me breaking, you'd finally understand that love was slipping right out of your hands. But they were tears you pretended not to see, falling quietly in front of you and me. You looked past my pain like it wasn't real, like my shattered breathing wasn't something you could feel. You didn't wipe them away, you didn't ask what's wrong, you just let me cry alone while sitting there all alone. They were tears you pretended not to see. Kept hoping my silence would finally reach your heart, that watching me crumble would tear you apart. But your face stayed steady, no panic, no plea, and that was the moment it shattered me. Because if you still loved me, you wouldn't stay so calm, you wouldn't watch me drowning without reaching your arm. They were tears you pretended not to see, rolling down slowly right in front of me. No apology, no urgency, just quiet distance where love used to be. You didn't have to say it, you didn't have to leave. The way you ignored my tears was enough to make me believe. I would have forgiven anything if you just held me tight, if you just looked at me like I was still worth a fight. But your silence was colder than any cruel word, and the sound of my crying was the loneliest I'd heard. They were tears you pretended not to see, and that's how I knew you were done with me. Because love doesn't sit still when someone's breaking down. It doesn't stare through sorrow without making a sound. You didn't push me away, you didn't set me free. You just let me cry and pretended not to see. I didn't know a heart could feel this wide, like something carved out from the inside. You didn't take my things, you didn't take the key, but you took something deeper when you left me. It's not the memories that hurt the most, it's the empty places where you used to live close. It's the space you left in me that echoes every night. Not your voice, not your touch, but the missing light. There's a hollow in my chest where your love would be, and no matter how I breathe, it still feels empty. You didn't break me loudly, you didn't make it dramatic. You just left a space in me that feels automatic. I walk into rooms and still feel you there, like your absence has a presence everywhere. I try to fill the silence with music or sleep, but the quiet you created is heavy and deep. People say it heals, people say it fades, but they don't know the outline of the space you made. It's the space you left in me that won't let me rest, like a missing heartbeat in my chest. I don't miss the arguments, I don't miss the pain, I miss the version of you that won't come back again. You didn't slam the door, you didn't tear me apart, you just removed yourself from my heart. Maybe one day this hollow will close, maybe one day I won't feel this ghost, but right now the silence is louder than screams, and I'm learning how to live with what it means. It's the space you left in me that changed who I am. Not the goodbye, not the end, but the empty span. You didn't leave chaos, you didn't leave debris, you just left a quiet space in me. You never said the words, never made it clear, but something in the quiet was louder than fear. I kept asking questions, you kept looking away, and every empty answer said more than you'd say. Love doesn't disappear without a sign, but yours faded softly right in front of mine. I learned the end from your silence, not from a goodbye, not from a confession, not from a lie. It was written in the pauses, in the way you drift in conversation, shortened in affection that would shift. You didn't tell me it was over, you didn't even try. I learned the end from your silence, and that's how I knew why. You stopped saying forever like it meant something real. Stopped reaching for my hand, stopped asking how I feel. You still stood beside me, but something felt undone, like your heart had already chosen to outrun. I kept hoping I was wrong, that I was just afraid, but silence tells the truth when love begins to fade. I learned the end from your silence, in the way you sigh, in the careful distance you couldn't justify. No dramatic ending, no final scene, just a slow unraveling of what we'd been. You didn't slam the door, you didn't make me cry, but your quiet retreat was the loudest goodbye. Maybe you thought you were sparing me pain by leaving in pieces instead of breaking the chain. But silence lingers long after the sound, and I'm still hearing what wasn't said out loud. And the end from your silence, and now I understand. Love doesn't always shatter, sometimes it just makes its plans. You didn't have to end it, you didn't have to try, because I felt forever fade without a single goodbye. I learned the end from your silence, and that's how love died. We didn't end in flames, we didn't end in tears. No shattered glass, no screaming fears. We just sat there quietly, with nothing left to try. And somewhere in that stillness, love said goodbye. Not in anger, not in blame, just a fading echo of what we became when silence said goodbye. It didn't make a sound, no final words, no falling down. It slipped between our fingers like it was always meant to go. And by the time we noticed we were already alone. You didn't break my heart, you didn't even try, but everything ended when silence said goodbye. We both felt it coming, but neither one spoke, holding on to something already broke. Your eyes were tired, mine were too. Two people pretending we didn't know the truth. Sometimes love doesn't fight, sometimes it lets go, and sometimes the loudest ending is the one you never show. And silence said goodbye. There was nothing left to say. No last desperate promise, no reason to stay brave. It wasn't cruel, it wasn't wild, just two broken hearts standing mild. You didn't walk away loudly, you didn't make me cry, but I felt forever fade when silence said goodbye. Maybe we both knew long before that night that love had grown tired of trying to fight. And maybe the kindest ending is the one without a war, where no one is the villain anymore. When silence said goodbye, I finally understood. Love doesn't always shatter like we think it should. Sometimes it fades gently like the lowering sky, and you don't hear it ending, you just realize that it's gone. When silence says goodbye.